So what if Ganon and Majora ended up battling each other? Well, today I'm going to show you what happens when we replicate the statistics of the two legends and then have them go about in a 2-round battle. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We are almost at 350 subscribers, right on the edge. So go ahead and join in on the fun and hit that sweet little red button. Also, this video is going to be divided into 4 parts. One, explaining how all of this is created. Another, to explain the statistics of the two legends. A third one, to discuss creative liberties that had to have been taken in order to make this virtually feasible and a lot less tedious. And finally, the last part, which will be the end result. With all that out the way, it's finally time to create a battle between these two legends. Who will prove their worth? Who will prevail? Find out today on Game Over. If you're on this section of the video, then you want to know how all of this was created. And it started out when I was creating my own version of Majora's Mask. This soon led to the creation of the arena in Blender, and then I downloaded a 3D model of Ganondorf and Ganon. There's a link to these models in the description below, and again, I did not create these. I can't thank the creators of these models enough for making this part of the project much easier. However, I did have to make the models for Majora's Wrath and Majora's Incarnation, and Majora's Wrath didn't turn out nearly as faithful to its source material. However, I am proud with how much time I put into creating it. There's still some small errors with its mesh and texture mapping, but I think it's good enough to present for this project. After that, I wanted to create this turn-based style attack system between the two, and yes, this looks extremely crude. And yes, this was made in GameMaker 8.1 Lite. But the sole purpose of this makeshift battle simulator was to compare the stats of each opponent's attacks with sampled time inputs added to it, along with 50-50 miss gauge to add some RNG to the battles. Finally, it's time to move on to the second section of this video. So I spent a week analyzing codes and attack data for both boss battles, and I've basically analyzed their values of their health, their attack power, and attack times. I ended up finding some pretty interesting strengths and weaknesses between the two opponents. I'm gonna simplify all this in the quickest way possible. Here are the overall stats between Majora and Ganon. The health difference is insane. However, Ganon makes up for all of this through his attack power. One beam toss exerts 48 damage points, and one beam barrage will pound an astonishing 80 health points from an opponent. If you want to dive further into these notes, I'll have a link to the document in the description below as well. But the last note I want to pick at is the attack times. I sampled 4 consecutive attacks out of each opponent's form, and found that Majora's attack times are faster than Ganon's on average. The curveball comes sliding in when we analyze their final forms. When we face Majora's Wrath, it seems like some whip attacks are non-stop, but in all actuality, the whips have a small 2 to 3 second window on average between them. I'm assuming this delay was made to give the player time to get up, as when we take away Link's fallover animation, these time windows still persist. The same cannot be said for Ganon. When we take out the fallover animation, Ganon's attacks are not only non-stop, but they're consistently timed, possessing a near 2-second time frame between each strike. This will prove to be a challenge for Majora in the upcoming battle. Finally, after doing some estimates and comparing values of their height, here's a proposed size that these opponents take up in the battle space. Now let's move on to our last section before we start this battle. A lot of creative liberties had to be taken when working on this concept. First, there will be no takedowns between the enemies, as Majora does not possess light arrows, and I don't find it consistent in Ganondorf's strategy to stop floating and perform a beam toss on Majora as it flies over him. Secondly, there won't really be blocking in this fight. Both opponents are capable of this action, but it's been taken out because I can't find an accurate statistic to dictate how often they will block each other's moves. Therefore, if you hear of them deflecting one another's attacks during the battle simulation, it's really because the simulator will say that they have missed, and I portray it as a block for the sake of not making the battle sound redundant. Next, I've taken out Wrath's spin and kick attack. It's normal to think that Majora could effectively evade Ganon's attacks with this handy trick, but after putting them in the arena together, this attack would not only compromise Wrath's flow, but it would also waste even more time trying to place Wrath somewhere else on the map where Ganon could just continue his onslaught of Sword Strike. This decision was also supported because Ganon really only has one attack, and it's fast, so giving the same to Majora's Wrath just made sense to me. Lastly, I just want to make a note that the reason I didn't include speed being a factor in missing attacks is just because A, I couldn't correctly determine the speed statistics of each opponent, even though we know Majora is much faster, and B, even if I did determine that, I lack the technical expertise to correctly implement this into the battle simulator. So let's get this battle started. Real quick, don't forget to check out my Patreon if you're interested in supporting the channel. I just started one up and it's going to host exclusive videos and content, also some of the music I make for the channel, polls to influence the next video, and you can even request short videos to be made if you have a certain part in the game you want me to look at. There'll be a link in the description below if you want to check it out, and with all that being said, let's continue with the video. So Ganon won the first battle, but we're going to run it for a second time and see how all of this plays out. So Majora completely dominated this round and technically didn't even have to use its reincarnation form. I think this round perfectly simulates how powerful Majora can be when it has luck and consistency on its side. And now it's time for the tiebreaker. I was really hoping for Majora to win, but out of the 3 battles, which was originally supposed to be 2, but there had to be a tiebreaker, Ganon proved to be much more powerful. It's largely in part because of his final form. The speed, the attack power, all of these factors generally made it hard for Majora to avoid his constant onslaught of attacks. His most successful technique was taking the L from Majora all the way until he went into Ganon form. From here, he'd bring Majora all the way down to its final form before executing his final attack. So I just want to say that this video will not be the definitive answer for the question of who would win in a fight, Majora versus Ganon. I feel like for sure the simulation could have so much more added to it, such as defense statistics and incorporating the actual battle tactics that some of them utilized. All of that is outside the scope of my abilities. So if you're watching this and you have some ideas and technical expertise, you can hit me up on Discord. It'll be in the description below, and maybe we can work together on creating an update battle. Let me know what you thought of this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And with all of this being said, stay safe and take it easy.